Hello, check. Hello. Sound is pretty bad.
I think the interesting thing here is that he has a number of seasons perspectives here. These are very strongholds generally, but as I said, very much Brexit oriented seats. But he will have to appeal to them in the deals that he has struck. So I expect a slightly softer Brexit than what we're talking about. But there's much more.
Hello, check. Hello, check.
Yes, we have a lot of work. Oh, so are you doing it here? Oh, he's here. Joe, you can do downstairs because he's doing the thing here. How can you talk from here?
Yeah, but there may not be anything on. I'm not getting many people coming on.
না তো একটা জিনিস করতে পারো, সই নিয়ে আসার মানে শরীর খুব খারাপ লাগে, আমাকে তুমি দাবিয়ে দিতে পারো ঘুরতে হবে, হ্যাভ টু ওয়েট অ্যান্ড ওয়েট চলে যাওয়ার পরে আমার ব্লাড প্রেশার দেখাবার দরকার। ঘুম হচ্ছে না, ঘুমের ট্যাবলেটও ঘুম হচ্ছেই না সামসলি।
Hi, Ganeshan. Can you hear? Can you hear now?
Hello.
Hi. I could hear you. You can hear me? You can hear? Hello, Shalini. I can see you and I can see Ganeshan's picture. I don't know if he can hear me. Can you guys hear me?
Hello.
Yeah, I could hear you. Can you hear me? How's
It's broken and unable to make I hear something, but I can't get it.
It's coming like as if through a phaser, like that's what your voice is sounding like.
Hi, can you hear me,
I
Saugato?
can hear you.
Yeah, okay. Ganeshan, maybe it's your area. So why don't you start? And
Okay.
we'll start record. I'm muting myself so we can have no background noise.
Okay. Okay. So look, I'm sure you'll be able to hear it later if it records properly. So I'll go with it. So I'm going to talk about something called solid pumped hydro today. So like, Australia is a little bit dry country. We often have a problem with, the rainfall may not be sort of consistent in all the years. So we might get good rain one year, then maybe dry 2-3 years, then maybe after another 5 years, again it rains well. So that means like we cannot rely on the availability of water on a regular basis. So even the rivers experience that. Some river valleys will have a drought, whereas maybe 1,000 kilometers away, another river valley might even have flood. So it's a little bit, what should I say, not consistent. So pumped hydro is something which is used all over the world. It's used to store energy, and it is the most successful and cheap form of energy storage. At this point, even though you heard a lot about batteries and various other new technologies, it's still about 95% of energy storage. But the problem is all the good places where you could do pumped storage very easily have been used up. So what is required for pump storage is like maybe 2 dams or 2 reservoirs, which are at a height difference. So that can be created usually by blocking off a small valley somewhere. And if in the below the valley there is a reservoir or a pond, between the two, you can do pumped storage. When you have energy, you pump from the lower pond into the dam in the valley. And when you want to release energy, that water flows down through the same pump, which now acts like a turbine to release the energy. And this is the mechanism. It's been working for the last 100 years. But the problem is most of the good sites have already been done. In all the developed countries, they're done. Right now, in the last year or two, in Asia and in Africa and in South America, they have been doing some because they were not fully developed. So the problem is to do new sites, water is not there and the good sites are already done. So we had to think of some creative way of doing the same thing, which is gravitational storage, but use some other material, not water. So the idea was, why not use solid? If we could lift it up to a height, then we will need energy to do it. And when you bring it down, you can release the energy, because if you can somehow find a way of releasing it. Now, people are doing it in very innovative ways. Somebody is trying to do it with a crane. They have been funded to a large extent. They are building some kind of a tower. They'll pick up blocks and put them on top of each other and build a tower. And that way they are creating the energy storage. And they will release the energy by using the same crane to bring it down. And the crane is run by electric motor. So the act of lifting up uses energy, and when they bring it down, they make the motor act like a generator to release it. So this has got funded. Somebody will probably build it, but it's not the cheapest way to do it. It's not very scalable. So the method that I have been working on last 2 years is relatively more efficient, and it can be scaled to any capacity which is needed. How does it work? Well, something like sand, or like when you go to a mine site, you get lots of crushed rock. So this is a very nice medium, which can be lifted quite easily to a height. Now you can do it using a conveyor, and that would also work. If you used a conveyor, put it on a belt, it can go to the height. And when it comes back, you can again use the same motors to somehow get the energy back. But this requires a fair bit of expense because gravitational energy storage requires you to move a large amount of mass because it works on m times g times h. And the g is only 10, like 9.8 meters per second square. So that's 10. And the h typically say it's 100 meters. So you got 1,000. So the rest of it has got to come from the weight, the mass. So if you want to get a megawatt, you need basically 3,600 tons to be lifted through 100 meters. And that will give you 1 megawatt hour if you were 100% efficient. So you can imagine once you start using a conveyor to lift 3,600 tons for 1 megawatt hour, if you want 100 megawatt hour, it becomes bigger than Ben-Hur. It becomes too big. So again, while it can be done, not the best way to do it. So the method I hit upon was slightly different. What was it? To mix water and this sand or the crushed rock and make it into a liquid. Liquid meaning like it is 60% water, 40% solid. So you can make that into in a little coffee cup next time you go to the beach. If you put water in a cup and you put sand into it so that it's fully saturated, it's almost like quicksand. So because the sand grains are separated by the water, so they can slide against each other. So it's very fluid. So if you put this into something called a slurry pump, it's a pump designed to pump this. Then you can pump this to the required height depending on the pump you choose. And interestingly, I found that I was looking for a turbine which can work not with water but with this slurry. And while people haven't been using turbines to do it much, but in principle, a centrifugal pump can also work like a turbine. So the challenge is to find which pump will do it. Well, the slurry pump itself will do it. Why is it? Because it is designed to handle the impact by the sand. When it's pumping, it handles it. So when you run it as a turbine also, it handles it. And interestingly, I found that somebody had done this about 20 years ago because they wanted to solve a problem of accumulation of tailings in a mine site. The mine site was in the highlands. And it was getting congested, so they had to move the tailings out, and the most efficient way to do it was to convert it to slurry and allow it to flow down a pipe. And somebody realized that maybe we can extract some energy out of it because it was coming down few hundred meters. So they put the same slurry pump and it worked. So all I have done is I've selected better models or more capacity models of the same slurry pump, and I've got a kit which basically can do about 1.5 megawatts per kit. And if I want more, I can put more in parallel. So this is the basic equipment. So now I've been thinking about how to put it into the field. So like a good size is maybe 30, 50 or 100 megawatts. But the problem is when you try to put that much size, you have to have capacity in a network to be able to handle that. And my sites which I want to do are going to be far in the countryside, like in the farmland. So they are not likely to have usually large the power grid which goes to those places is just meant to service a small farm, maybe 200 kilowatts. So the power grid which serves them does not have usually the capability to handle 30 megawatts. So if you want to do it, you still can, but you have to build virtually a substation which will handle that and then connect it to the bigger capacity grid. Maybe you have to run a power line for a few kilometers. So all this starts to become costly. So which defeats the purpose of having low cost energy storage, because we are basically competing against something like, maybe the lithium ion battery, or now people are doing flow batteries. There are a few other means, but these are more or less what is the best of breed right now. So thinking further, I realized that maybe the key is to make it distributed so that each location is only one unit, just 1 megawatt or 1.5 megawatt, maybe you can put two or three, depending on how much is the capability of the power line which is running across that farm. How much is its spare capacity. And then the beauty is, like, you can aggregate these centrally from a server. So you can build, hundreds of them. Depending on how much demand, you just put some more in some new locations. So virtually you're getting the same capability without having the problem of, having to build substations. You're just using the existing network, because how the farms are served is they usually have maybe a 22 kV or a 11 kV line running across it, and they have a small transformer on top of that pole itself. They call it pole top, and that converts it to the 220 volts or 240 volts that the farm needs. So this can easily piggyback onto that transmission line, which is meant to service that farm, and put on the 1 megawatt maybe. So that is the model I'm working on. So it's really boiled down to right now, if I can lay my hands on about 2 mil, that is 2 million Australian, which is about 1 point some 3 or so US, I can put on very handsomely one working site which will do this perfectly. And this creates a very unique, new, beautiful concept, because see, if you can create such a location where you are going to be able to do energy storage, then that same farm, you could put a small bank of solar panels and become the local source also. So you can virtually become like a self-contained battery which will drive in a distributed way. And this concept can be done virtually anywhere in the world. So it's really at that stage now. I'm pitching to various people, and I thought, like, I should really try to involve. There are a lot of people who are now feeling quite strongly about climate change and such things. So I've made a GoFundMe which describes this similarly as I'm talking, and like, I want really people to get involved. So what I would like is, more than individual contributions from all of us, is maybe you make a small contribution, make $10, $5, whatever it is. $100 is very good, thank you, Shalini. But like, more importantly, if you actually get your hands dirty, and you all have your own networks, people who follow you, people who admire you for whatever reasons, if you pass on the message in that network, and really, if a lot of people get involved, it creates two good things. A, it will bring a certain amount of money, but B, it creates virtually a sort of mandate, that so many people have put their voice behind it for nothing that they will receive personally. That is a huge a positive, because these days people will fund things if there is a sort of a virtual customer. Now they are not really customers, people who will put in 50 rupees, which is $1 or whatever. But the point is, if 100,000 people have done it, I'm sure I'll have no trouble finding this $2 million which I need to make the first site. So it's at a very interesting point. I've got more or less the things lined up. Like, I'm thinking of using ASIA equipment, ABB, ASIA Brown Boveri. So their motor and with their drive, it seems, will do the job, as I have found. So virtually I'm at the point of doing. And very interesting about this thing is that same slurry pump, it works with water also. So in the wet year, when there's a lot of water, we can virtually work with fully water. And as the water starts to dry up, we can go into slurry mode. So it is quite a practical, simple device. And more importantly, we are facing a lot of fire now with this climate change. Like right now, even it looks overcast here, but within about 200 kilometers from here, it's burning. And it will not stop until there is a big rain. And that's not forecast for 4 weeks. So we have burnt 700 houses so far, homes, in spite of trying to protect them in this season. And this is only the first 1/3 of the season. So God only knows what the tally will be, but chances are it will cross maybe 1,000 or 1,200. So the thing is that there is a cost associated with this. Now, the beauty of this sort of project is that, see, while we will do solid pumped hydro mainly with sand and using a little bit water, that little bit water is also substantial. It is probably something like 2% of the amount needed to do the full pumped hydro. But the point is that 2% itself can be, few hundred kiloliters or megaliter maybe. So we will create like a large, what they call a farm dam here. It's something like a talab, like a big talab. We dig it out with earth moving equipment and collect the normal runoff from the rain when the rain happens. So, like, that will be a benefit to the farmer on whose land it will go, because they will not to have to spend the money for that. And the benefit will be that in these extreme fire and such events, suppose we have the two talabs and one of them is at 100-meter elevation. It is a perfect location for driving sprinklers and hydrants to do fire protection when the fire comes through. So it might save the home, or it might save even a community. So these are some of the side benefits. And because it's a drought country, in the extreme situations, it might even serve as emergency water reserve, for animals, people. So this, I see it as a really a multi-purpose thing, which is cost competitive, and it is delivering the basic essential now. It is increasing essential, because as we are retiring our coal-fired power plants, we are finding that it is expensive to do energy storage. People are doing pumped storage where they can. And in Australia, we need probably between 20 and 30 gigawatts of energy storage. Now, the pumped storages they are trying to do, the two big ones, which will provide about 5 or 6 gigawatts. So there is still a gap of anything between 15 and 20 gigawatts of capacity of pumped storage that is needed. So now this is not critical right now. When I say needed, this will become critical after we cross the threshold of about 60% renewables. So right now renewables is only about 22% on average. That means if you average the day and night, at night it might be even less. Daytimes in some states it can cross 50% in one or two states. But we have three big states here, which is the bulk of the population. At night time it is easily running 80% coal still. So these are going to retire, but when they retire is when this will become absolutely critical. So far, nobody has paid for the premium, any premium for having a storage capability. But what is happening is the first tenders are coming out where they are seeking to, actually it has been happening for a while, people are going into power purchase agreements, which are sort of assured delivery of power. So when you assure the delivery of power and you have to deliver at night also, storage becomes critical. Right now, the coal plants are, basically, and the gas turbines, they are providing that capability, to serve at night. But except for wind, which is good where it's there. But this storage will be absolutely required. In about 10 years time, it will become totally critical. So right now is the time for people to invest in this, already become entrenched, use up the good sites, because here also those little sites will get used up. So the thing is, it's the thing to do right now. So like, I want to make a start here. Now, when it comes to the patent, there's an interesting thing. I actually wrote the patent, and patents is interesting. If anybody has claimed something, even if they were not granted the patent, if they have claimed something, that's enough to stop you from getting a patent for that item. So when I wrote it, part of the claims which I had made for my patent, somebody had such a dud claim, some European fellow had done. So I had to reduce the things which I could claim for my project. But eventually I came to a fairly unique set, which was identified. Now, the good thing is this process has established that nobody else has actually claimed this in a patent. So, which is a good thing. That means like there is reduced the chances of nuisance, cases, people trying to mount when you're trying to do projects. And uh, I have received the Australian patent fully. When it comes to the international, there's a concept called WIPO. So earlier, it was not there, and you had to individually do the full application in every country, and every country used to examine it, and it used to be a fairly inefficient process. Now, because of World International Patent Organization, there is called a patent treaty, PCT, and there is a EPCT. So patient cooperation treaty, I believe. So what happens there is that you are allowed to make one lodgement, international lodgement to the uh, EPCT, which is a WIPO entry, and then it gets examined. Mine was, and then you are allowed to defend it, which I had to do, and then it gets published once they are satisfied that they think it's okay. So mine was published. So what that gives you is the right to now apply in different countries without having the full rigor of the examination to be granted a patent. So right now I can apply virtually in every country in the world, like the 144 countries or something. So like I will not apply in all of them, but some locations are probably worth doing. So the shortlist I had made, if I had about 20,000 to just spend, was US, Canada, UK, Europe. Some of the countries are in a block, others are not. Then what do you call, Africa is like that. South Africa is separate. So maybe a few in Japan, and China is a possibility again if you want to. So these can be applied separately. So when it comes to these, I will not be spending 20,000. I've already spent about 6. I might just do another 1 or 2 on my own bat. But if anybody is interested, people are most welcome to pick a country and agree to do fund the fees. The fees basically is typical fees, like for example the US. The fees is only about $500, but the lawyers who will do it for us, whether you do it directly yourself, or I've got a fellow lined up in Bengaluru who has got all my particulars and my power of attorney, so he can lodge on my behalf anywhere. So like he has got my instructions that if any of you guys contact, you are able to be assigned by him directly 50% of the, what do you call, the patent rights in that country. So this whole mechanism has to be done by 13th of January because it starts to expire in some countries, and I think in most countries it will expire within 1 or 2 months. Probably most will expire 13th of February. So this is an open offer right now. Like, look, it's not a huge. I mean, like if you are reasonably comfortable, like I could probably take a risk of $1,000 in some country. Now, what happens afterwards is first 5 years is usually, there's no further expense. And the concept is by that time, hopefully you started to realize some benefits. Now, at that point, if you have not, we can even let it lapse, which means like you don't pay any other fees. And the moment you don't pay fees, within 1 or 2 years, it lapses. If, however, you've started to derive benefits and you want to keep it alive, it goes for 20 years. So like after that, they start charging like something like $100, $200 per year to keep it alive. So in something like US, it might be $7,000, $8,000 over the 20-year period. Now, what's the benefit of the patent? Well, having the patent, if you want to do a project now, which is again open to offer to anybody, if you are in your country and you have influence and little bit control, if you want to do such a project, well, if you have the patent, at least you have the full authority to do it. And from my side, as I do any projects, whatever learning is there, that will be available. So that will be the ongoing thing. So that is one way of development possible. If not, if the patent is there, it can be, like suppose a multinational or somebody wants to buy out the patent everywhere. If you own 50%, you will naturally get the benefit of whatever is the patent is sold for. So these are the patent issues. But however, if nothing happens, at least the concept is still good. I will try to do it in Australia. India will get patented because it's launched, and it's still worth doing. And worst case, if if I am not involved, if somebody else does it, even that is a good thing. So from my point of view, I firmly believe that this is a good solution. It is a clean solution. It doesn't require building huge mega factories and mining lots of rare minerals with highly, chemical processes for extraction. It's using equipment which is already manufactured using existing factories. So it's a good thing, and people with existing jobs continue to expand further. And there is also a certain amount of normal machine maintenance, like this is normal pumps and equipment like that, electrical equipment. So there will be some operational activity, so it will generate some jobs also, unlike some of the others where there'll be equipment or batteries supplied made in a factory, so most of the investment does not produce jobs. So this is a little bit more friendly, and I see it in developing countries, and even in India, where electrification is happening, and the state electricity board is not reliable. This can make the gaon sort of off grid fairly well, because the solar PV can do the daytime and the charging, and at night this can happily provide the power. So it can still be, village can be connected to the grid, but it will be saved from the vagaries of any power cut or anything. So it can make it much better. So that was the journey so far. And any questions?
Well, thanks so much, Doctor. This is fascinating. A couple of things. This is being very cynical. There is business which will actually get you likes for some money, if you want that many likes to show your investors.
Okay, send me the details, but
Yes.
I'll have a think about it. I mean, I'm not sure if I want to do it that way.
Yeah, I know. I understand that, but I'm just telling you, like I said, I'm being cynical. We've actually done studies of 400 startups, which actually we found the correlation between amount of money they raised and the likes they had, and it was very, very, very high. So therefore,
okay, we have to learn. This is a new world.
Yeah.
If you have any information, send it to me. I'll give it a thought by all means.
Yeah. I know it is, like I said, cynical. On the other hand, I've sent it to one group of my students. I have about 300 students each semester. So the last 3 or 4 semesters, I'll at least, send this to them and let them at least, like you said, create a virtual base of.
Yes, because it's about education right now.
Right.
I don't know if we're not connected on LinkedIn. Like today, I just wrote a small piece explaining, somewhere I read that the cost of hydrogen, people are trying to do green hydrogen, is $2.50 to $6.8. But the article did not provide, the basis of the price. So I just I first asked the question, but could you provide the basis? There were nobody answered because people don't know how. But the answer was ridiculously simple, just a simple calculation, just by. And I put it up because I want people to have ownership of these facts. Like most of these things are not. There's no rocket science, but except there is only lack of knowledge. That's all. And it's available, accessible knowledge. So if we can build the next generation to be, more aware citizens, so that then nobody will be able to exploit them. So they will be able to taking the right decisions. And the sooner we can do it, if we can do it in the next 5 years, I think that's the biggest, movement or change we can bring about.
Oh, no, definitely. And you talked about fires, and I live in California, and there are fires here all the time. So we also looking at
you're exactly in the same environment. So just imagine, like if there was, a couple of Olympic swimming pools of water on top of the hill, what would it do to the houses which were in that valley?
Right.
The answer is simple. There is no,
That's
and
true.
and the thing is that the cost of putting that up is going to be amortized by the regular, every day's income from storage. So,
Right.
once in 5 years, it will save you from burning. But
Mm.
6 months later, rain will fill it up again. But
Exactly. Exactly.
in the next 4.5 years, it would be paying for itself. Actually, very
Right.
handsome.
Right.
So, it's something that which should actually, like, even if somebody wants to do it in California, by all means, I mean,
Mm.
it can
I'll
happen.
also put you in touch with some other these are Wall Street types who are trying to now save the earth in the field of energy.
Yeah, absolutely.
And there is this guy called Michael, and he's trying to put some money, and trying to basically sell the idea of renewable energy or microgrids, off grids, to
Yeah.
Wall Street people to make a profit. So let me put you in touch with him too, and probably that will help. I haven't been in touch with him for 2 years, so let's hope he
No,
remembers me.
by all means, look, this is something which we have to all work collectively together.
Sure.
And like the more people that get involved, the better it is. And some
Yeah.
people who actually have properties in such areas,
Mm.
they might want to just do it.
Right. That makes total sense. So, I mean, I'm obviously not an engineer, and my thing is, there are competitors like Tesla batteries and all these other things. How
Yeah.
is this compete with this or the solar grids,
See,
off
the
grid
thing with the
solar
battery,
panels?
yeah. See, the thing is that solar panel is, very friendly to this, because the concept is this doesn't generate the energy. So the energy comes from places like solar
Right.
panel. This stores it
Stores it, correct.
and makes it available, on demand at
Mm.
night, or when there is,
Right.
high prices. So, here we have an interesting situation. Probably you have in the US also. Like,
Mm.
because what happens is we as consumers are usually paying a fixed price, so many cents per kilowatt hour.
Correct.
So the utility company, it is in the game of making sure that it can buy or hedge
Yeah.
to be able to supply that. So while people hedge, there's always a certain amount of unhedged, which they buy from the market, and
Right.
there they get exposed to very high prices. Sometimes, prices spike.
Right.
So, like, this is something which will even help people like that. If they, if they invest in some of these, then it's like a battery. Now, people are talking about Tesla battery. Yeah, look, Tesla battery is good for if you occasionally use it. But like, if you use it in anger, like every day, for example, if you started using your car, like your car, if
Right.
you went off grid with your car, so you and you used it fully, the car is a pretty good, if you have a Tesla car, it's a 60 kilowatt hour thing.
Right.
And your house usually consumes probably 20 or 30 kilowatt hour. So it definitely has the capacity to do it. But the problem is, it's got a finite life. What is the life? It is a certain number of cycles. So right now
Right.
it's between about 4,000 cycles.
Okay.
So start looking, like every day will be one cycle, right? So if you count, there's 365 days. So 4,000 cycles will be used in 10 years time.
Right.
So if you are also using your car also, so then you can see that you are using it, burning the candle from both ends. So probably at the end of 5 years, you might be looking for changing a battery, which otherwise would have lasted you probably 12 years.
Got it.
So like, and it is not that cheap. That battery is also quite sizable. So it's probably, right now, if you wanted a new battery, probably cost you $20,000 or something. So if you look at your power, yeah, because most of the cost of the car is that battery.
Right.
It's a large part.
That's surprising, because in fact, in this area, they're actually advertising it as a consumer product. So we were just looking at it last weekend, like, should we buy a Tesla battery for the house because of fires and backups and
For
it
the
was
house, there is a smaller one called Powerwall, but
the
that's only,
Powerwall. Correct. The Powerwall.
but the Powerwall is only 13 kilowatt hour. So
Right.
the car battery is 60. It's like 5 times as big.
Right.
So hence the price difference. So the
Right.
point is, like, even that one is not cheap. Like, it's probably, how much was it? Was it about 10,000 or 9,000?
A
Something
little
like
less, I think 6,000 or so it was. We
that.
were
Okay,
looking at it, and then
maybe
we
maybe
realized,
maybe some of them you might be getting some. Okay, maybe 6,000 might be right, because US dollar, Australian dollar. I keep
right.
thinking, but there
But
might be
it
a small
needed,
subsidy also. There might be
Yeah,
a small state subsidy.
maybe, but it needed solar panels, and we've had solar panels in the past, and we've had really bad issues with that. So we are kind of hesitant right now to, do anything like that.
Okay,
But,
like in that context, like I have some thoughts. Look, you know, there are some panels available which directly produce. Each panel has got a microinverter,
right.
like which you don't have to. You can just have them separately. Like it's more do-it-yourself, if you like.
Correct.
It's not fully happened, but that I see as the future, where
Mm-hmm.
people will have, just these. Each panel will be half a kilowatt, and you will
Mm-hmm.
just plug it into a socket. It will produce the power when it's there, and you
Mm.
buy as many as you will use. Don't buy
Wow.
for storage.
Wow. Wow.
It is, this one is coming, because imagine, like, and the beauty is I see the old people, people who are homebodies, who are not
Mm.
working anymore. Just
Right.
imagine, just like the sun moves around in the during the day, right, in your house,
Correct.
one part becomes shady. So imagine 6 panels on an A frame, and the guy
Mm.
wheels it in one corner in the morning, and in the
Right.
afternoon just moves it, and he keeps
Wow.
getting the benefit of a tracker all day. And these are
Yes, yes,
retired
yes,
people.
yes. It's called the sunflower or the flower. I remember seeing that. I've been after my husband to buy that, but anyway, this
So
is interesting.
there is innovation going to happen in this space all the time. So, but the point is, the batteries, the basic thing is, the replacement cost is there,
Yes.
and B, eventually, like, this is just like normal maintenance, like, you're just maintaining a pump. So
Correct.
somebody will open it, change the washer, that kind of stuff, and
Right.
away it
Right.
will go. And we are used to doing this in our factories for hundreds of years.
Yeah.
So it's very
No, no, and I
simple.
like the idea of generating jobs locally rather than again being
That's
at
it. Like in small communities, just imagine, my vision is like the farmer on whose land this goes, he will get a small rental income. Okay.
right.
And he will also get a part-time job.
Correct. Correct.
And how good is that, to get income on your farm without having
Mm.
to go away to earn it. I mean,
Mm. Mm.
like drought proofing the farm operation.
Right.
So
So have you also been on these climate change websites, because they have a link? They would love to have a link like yours on that. Let me send you those links too.
absolutely do, because see, I do try to browse, but I'm not probably the most proficient person in that area. And I've got the material which I
Right.
can put forward. I've got pitch decks and various things
Correct.
which I
Correct.
keep trying to improve. So any sites which are
Sure. Sure. You should get to one of your students at your university to, this is a project for him or her to sit and, put it on social
yes.
media, and it'll be a big hit. Maybe I'll ask one of I have a student who's very, very into sustainability, and he
Well,
wants to do
look, tell them.
something.
Look, tell them. The thing is that if this thing takes off,
Yeah.
it can really become big. And no matter where they are,
Sure.
there will be, I think, growth in every country.
Oh yeah, yeah, definitely.
So they could be in the forefront of it. So it's sometimes, like, just like we teach Nishkam Bhavna, like, you're doing something for nothing, but for a good
Yeah.
cause. It can come back to reward you very massively. That's the only
Right.
message I will give.
So tell me, apart from the GoFundMe page, do you have something else that any other websites or any other virtual
Look,
properties I can send links to
actually,
people?
like, I have booked this thing, a domain, but I have, that's my job for the next 2 weeks. I have to
Okay.
populate it with some sensible material. So right now,
Okay.
it just only
Sure.
got the SPH,
Domain
whatever.
name. Okay. Yeah.
So
Yeah,
I will
that's
be
fine.
putting material on there, talking some
Mm-hmm.
of these things. And
Right. Right. Yeah, because then I can direct people to that as well as,
absolutely. So look, I know I'm been slacking on that, but the good thing is I booked the domain, so that won't go away. And now
Yeah,
I
yeah.
have to.
And in fact, there is this website called Weebly, which has an
Yes.
it has an AI thing where it will do most of the building of the website by itself. You just have to drag and drop things like PowerPoint. So if you can do
Okay.
PowerPoint, you can make the
Right now,
website.
I've gone on to something called GoDaddy, but like, it's
No, no,
got
no, no.
WordPress. I'm beginning to learn it.
No,
If I don't
not
master it, I'll go to Weebly.
Yeah,
Have you?
don't go, because Weebly is like no learning. I literally make my students do it in 15 minutes. Everyone makes a website for their business in 15 minutes in class, because it's an AI enabled thing. You just tell them what it does, and you can just put some pictures around it. It's literally very, very, very easy. I refuse to let my students learn anything. So if you're actually doing that, I'll send you some links on that too.
Okay,
And
like
I
one
don't
way
want
or
you to
the
use
other.
your brain doing something that you don't have to, you know, spend doing. Let's
Yeah,
use
but then
resources, conserve them. Okay. But thank you so much. This is wonderful. It's past 10:30. It's past my bedtime here, but I'm going to put it up tomorrow morning. Okay, my time.
brilliant.
So that
Okay,
everyone can
thanks for everything.
see. Yeah. Take care. Good luck. Bye.
And Ganeshan, I don't know if like I couldn't hear you much, but hopefully you were able to hear me, or you'll hear it in the recording. So
Bye. Take care.
okay, bye. Thanks, Shalini.
Mm.